Happy Bi Visibility Week, everybody. We're here for The Advocate. To celebrate Bi Visibility Week here at The Advocate, we wanted to have a conversation about the distinction between pansexual and bisexual, which is a very confusing topic even within the queer community, and even when you identify as bisexual or pansexual. So we have Kai here today, who identifies as pansexual, and I identify as bisexual, and we're just going to have a conversation about where we see the distinctions, the differences, and anything like that. This is by no means the be-all, end-all. So whatever your definition is for your sexuality, that is 100% okay. But we're just going to have a conversation about our definitions. So enough of me talking. Let's pass it to you. How do you define pansexuality for yourself?
I personally identify more with the label pansexual because one of the definitions is that you experience attraction to people of any gender or of all genders, or some people who are agender, so no genders. Mm-hmm. And there's another definition that is being attracted to people regardless of gender or without gender being like a factor to attraction. And I don't necessarily identify very much with pansexual because of that definition, mm-hmm. but I definitely know people who experience that.
I define bisexuality as being attracted to two or more genders. Which can be as many, all of them, or none of them. Though I do know some people who define bi as two, because, just male or female, and they're not attracted to trans identities.
I think for people who are bisexual and define that as being attracted to people who are male or female, if they're not attracted to binary trans men and binary trans women, it's kind of like a weird, complicated thing. Yeah. If they're not attracted to non-binary people, that's understandable.
It's interesting because I've seen a lot of people talk about how pansexuality might be viewed as more open and accepting than bisexuality, because bisexuality, again, has that binary idea in it, and especially in the name. And I've never personally found that to apply to me, but I've still appreciated the term bisexual, just because for me it's where I first found my sense of community as a bisexual. So how do you feel like the difference between bisexual and pansexual?
I feel like pansexual describes me better, but I haven't ever stopped using bisexual because when I first realized that I was bi and when I was 13, that was the first label that I found. I didn't have the language to describe my attraction to people of any or all genders, because I didn't know the label pansexual existed at the time. So I identified as bi for a good 2-3 years, and then when I was 16, I think I stumbled upon pansexual, and I had some hang-ups about it at first because I wasn't sure if I was valid as a pan person if I experienced attraction to people, but the way I experienced attraction to people with regards to their gender was a little bit different. And then I realized there are multiple different ways to define it, and then I was like, yeah.
So when you said your attraction to people of different genders was a little bit different, what do you mean?
I tend to notice that I develop crushes on people who are masculine of center more often than I develop crushes on people who are feminine of center or neutral. The way I experience attraction to people based on those traits is different, but the intensity of my attraction is not different. I don't like girls less than I like guys. It's just how often I develop crushes.
No, that's actually weirdly similar to how I feel. I usually find myself attracted to people who are more masculine presenting. That's just a tendency that I've seen across the people that I've dated. But I wouldn't say that I'm not attracted to women or feminine presenting people. So that's interesting that we define our sexuality seemingly very similarly, but use different words. So, have you ever come across a time where you would want to make the distinction between pansexual and bisexual clear, like a social situation or something like that?
I don't really feel the need to specifically seek out pansexual spaces over bi spaces, because I feel like both encapsulate me. But I did have a really exciting interaction with someone. I intern at the UCLA LGBT Center. I'm an outreach intern there, and so I table for orientations, or I've tabled for orientations for the summer, and so we have these cute little UCLA LGBT pins, buttons and stickers, and I was just tabling, and I usually just put out a good selection of them. And the most popular ones are always bi and the rainbow ones. So the bi pins and stickers and the rainbow pins and stickers. But one person came up to me really excited and grabbed like the pan sticker and the pan button and was so happy to find that representation, to see that. And it made me really happy as a pan person. Like, it makes me very happy as a bi/pan person to see people grabbing the bi one, but that sheer joy, like, of someone just running up and like immediately recognizing the flag and grabbing that, made me really happy that we as a center are inclusive and recognize those identities.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The pan flag, I do think, is the best flag.
Really?
Like the yellow, the like really bright yellow and blue and pink, I'm all about it, even though I'm bisexual. It's like kind of like dark, we have like the dark purple and black, which like looks cool, like it's a nice aesthetic, but like the pansexual flag is really, really bright. I'm always jealous of that.
I like the bi flag more.
Wait, why?
I don't know, I like dark colors. I just think I just really like the bi flag.
Gotcha. I'm the person when I'm like doing video editing, I turn the saturation bar all the way up, so I just like poppy colors, so the pansexual flag speaks to me on that level. Do people ever get confused when you identify as pansexual? Do people ever go, "What is pan? Are you attracted to pots and pans?"
Yeah, that's always one of the jokes in the community, that people are like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like pans? And it's just like, no. Like, yeah, I like pans, but not like that. Usually, I tend to explain myself pretty well, and I'll do it every once in a while. Like, I'll just do a social media like post, and I'll just explain my identities, and then I'll be like, if you have questions, just message me. And for the most part, I don't get a lot of questions about the distinction between the two, because I've already explained what it means to me, what it means to other people, and so on and so forth. But I definitely have friends who like come out to their parents and they're like, "So are you bi?" And they're like, "No." Like, sort of, but no. Or like, definitely no for some people.
Mm-hmm. Are you frustrated by that you constantly are educating about your identity?
I like to educate people, because for me it's about, if I educate people, then they're better to me and they're also better to other people in the community. And I'm able to take on that emotional labor and do so, and like that's really important to me, because I do a lot of like social justice work and social advocacy.
Obviously it's Bi Visibility Week, so do you ever get bothered, or do you see other pansexual people get bothered by, bisexual visibility? And we talk about bisexuals in a lot of in media and in written articles and in stories and all this different stuff, and pansexuals don't always get as much attention, other than, look at this pansexual person. I
do definitely know that there isn't nearly as much coverage or like attention about pansexuality. Although recently Janelle Monáe came out as pansexual.
Yeah.
It's the best thing ever. Apparently, or from what I hear, like searches for what pansexual meant like greatly increased around that time, and I was just like excited for that, because then people would know what that meant. And we have like an amazing role model, and so that's really cool.
How did you learn you were pansexual, and how did your family take it?
I think I'm pretty sure I realized that I was pansexual via the internet, as a lot of people do these days. I learned that I was bi because I knew a friend who was bi, and she was openly out. And I just kind of like talked to her about it. I was like, well, I like guys, and I think I have a crush on this girl. And she was like, I think you're bi. And then a month later, I was like, I'm bi. But it took me another like 3 years to really come across, and then I'd start to identify with the label pansexual. And then I told my parents that I was bi, but I never told them that I was pan, because my parents, they immigrated from China, so like they have the basic knowledge. They know what LGBT stands for, but they don't know what pansexual means, and I don't think they would really understand, because they also think there are only two genders. Like, I have come out to them as a trans guy, but I haven't told them that actually I'm non-binary. So I don't think I'm really ever going to tell my parents. It's not such an important distinction that I think they really need to know the difference. And it's kind of not really their business who I'm dating, if I'm dating.
My trans identity and my non-binary identity have informed my bisexuality and vice versa, as I learn more about both at the same time. Has that ever been the case for you, or have you seen yourself learning about sexuality and your gender identity in separate times?
I do recognize that when I was first discovering my identities, I was 13 and I realized I was bi, and then I was 15 and I realized I was trans, and then I was like 16 and I realized I was non-binary and I was pan. And then it's just sort of like evolved since then. And I'm 18 now, and all of these, I use all of the labels basically. I kind of joke that I'm the GBTQP and LGBTQP because I have or still use all of these labels.
Is there anything that you wish people would know about pansexuality?
I think it's important to note that everyone who identifies as pan might have different definitions of what that means. Like I mentioned that for me, it means that I like people of any or all genders, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I like people regardless of gender or without gender being a factor or gender presentation. And it's just important to kind of let people take the lead on like, what does that mean to them, and respect that. Because people use a lot of labels and they might be like changing or flexible. It might fluctuate over time. People might discover new labels that are more accurate to them, or they might identify with certain aspects of different labels. And I think it's just really important to like respect that everyone's individual identity is their individual identity.
I definitely don't have the same labels for myself that I had even a year ago. So it's cool to allow people to have that flexibility. Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking. It was really awesome to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
So, and I wish